The cry in the night. The wind was cold that night, sharp and dry as it passed through the narrow streets of an abandoned colony. Most lights were dead, and only a few broken lamps flickered like ghosts on the walls. Ethan, a human engineer who stayed behind after the evacuation, was fixing a power relay near the old shelter. He had spent 3 weeks alone, searching for survivors and keeping the energy lines alive. The planet, once home to both humans and aliens, had become silent after the virus outbreak. No one dared to breathe the open air for long. But Ethan's oxygen filter hummed softly as he worked, giving him comfort in the emptiness. Then he heard it. A small voice cutting through the wind like a spark in darkness. "My mom can't breathe." It cried, full of panic and pain. Ethan froze, his hands trembling. The voice was not human. The tone was softer, melodic, like the speech of the Zalari, a species once allied with humans before the Exodus. He turned his light toward the sound, but saw nothing, only broken walls and fog. Again, the voice came closer this time. "Please. Someone help. My mom can't breathe." Ethan's heart pounded. He knew what that meant. If her mother's respirator was broken, she would die within minutes without a second thought. He grabbed his portable air tank and ran toward the voice. His boots splashed in puddles of toxic rain. Every shadow looked alive, every echo a threat, but he didn't stop. Behind a collapsed building, he found them, a small alien girl, maybe 8 years old, her skin pale blue and her eyes glowing faint green in fear. Beside her lay a larger figure, her mother, motionless, chest barely rising, the girl's tiny hands pressed on her mother's mask, trying to seal the cracks. "Please, please, she can't breathe." She cried again. Ethan knelt beside them. "It's okay, I'm here," he said, trying to sound calm. He pulled open his toolkit and connected the emergency hose to the woman's damaged respirator. A faint hiss filled the air as clean oxygen flowed again. The alien woman's chest lifted slightly, but her pulse was weak. The girl watched with wide eyes, tears streaming down her face. "You're human," she whispered, afraid and hopeful at once. "Yes," Ethan said softly, "and I'm not leaving you." He checked the oxygen gauge. The tank wouldn't last long, maybe 30 minutes. "We need to move her somewhere safe," he said. The girl nodded quickly, clutching her mother's hand. "She was looking for air filters," the girl murmured. Then she fell. Ethan lifted the alien woman gently, feeling her light frame under the blanket of dust. He motioned for the girl to follow. "My name is Ethan. What's yours?" "Lyra," she said in a trembling voice. "Okay, Lyra, stay close to me," he said. They moved through the ruins, guided by the dim blue light from Ethan's wrist beacon. Every corner whispered danger. The air was thick with the smell of rust and ozone. Somewhere in the distance, a siren howled. Not human, not mechanical, something else. Lyra shivered. "They're coming," she said quietly. "Who?" Ethan asked. "The scavengers," she whispered. "They take everything, even people." Ethan's grip tightened on the air tank. "We'll be safe, I promise," he said, even though he wasn't sure. He guided her to the old control bunker, a half-buried building beneath the city's main road. Inside, the air was dry but clean, powered by a small backup unit Ethan had repaired days ago. He placed the alien woman on a cot, connected her mask to the main air line, and checked her vitals. Slowly, her breathing steadied. Lyra fell to her knees beside her mother, sobbing softly. "Thank you," she said. "No one else would help us." Ethan looked at her, fragile, terrified, yet brave. He remembered the old treaty between humans and the Zalari, broken years ago by war and fear. He had seen many humans call them enemies, monsters. But looking at Lyra, he saw only a child trying to save her mother. "You don't need to thank me," he said quietly. "We look after each other. That's what makes us human." Lyra tilted her head. "Even if we are not human?" Ethan smiled faintly, especially then, outside. Thunder rolled, shaking the bunker walls. The world above was dying, but here, in this small room, a spark of life still burned, for the first time in weeks. Ethan felt something he thought he had lost: purpose. He didn't know that the simple act of saving one alien life would soon change everything. He didn't know that both species' future would hang on this moment. But in that quiet breath, as the alien woman exhaled slowly, and the child clutched his arm in gratitude, Ethan understood what humanity truly meant. Shadows in the storm rain fell harder outside, tapping against the metal roof like 1,000 tiny claws. Ethan sealed the bunker door and checked the oxygen lines once more. Lyra sat beside her mother, holding her hand tightly. Whispering words in her alien tongue, her mother's breathing was weak, but steady now. A soft rhythm that gave hope in the silence. The human man leaned back, exhausted but alert, listening to the sound of distant thunder mixed with strange mechanical echoes. He knew those weren't storms. The scavengers were moving. They hunted light, sound, or movement, anything that promised energy or warmth. He dimmed his wrist beacon and whispered, "Stay quiet, Lyra." The girl nodded, eyes wide, her small hands trembling. Ethan had survived many nights alone on this broken planet. But tonight felt different. He wasn't alone anymore, and that meant responsibility and danger. He peeked through a narrow slit in the metal hatch. Shapes moved in the fog, their outlines tall and thin, carrying strange lanterns that flickered red. Scavengers, hybrids made of flesh and machine, half living, half rust. They were once miners who merged with their tools after the collapse. Losing their minds, but gaining hunger for power sources, they could smell batteries and heat like predators scenting blood. Ethan whispered to himself, "If they find us, we're finished." Lyra tugged at his sleeve softly. "They know we're here," she said, voice trembling. Her kind could sense vibrations through the air, a gift humans didn't have. Ethan grabbed the EMP stick from his belt, his last line of defense, a pulse weapon that could fry circuits for a few seconds. He turned to her. "Listen to me, if anything happens. Take your mother and crawl into that shaft. It leads to the old subway line." Lyra shook her head, tears welling up. "No, you'll die." He gave a small, tired smile. "I've already faced death before, little one. This time I'll face it with a reason." The sound of scraping metal grew louder. Closer, a red beam cut through the fog outside the hatch. Searching, Ethan turned off the oxygen line from the outside unit, plunging the bunker into a faint silence. Only the sound of the woman's shallow breath remained. Then a crash, the outer lock shook violently. Lyra gasped and covered her mouth. Ethan held his pulse stick tightly, waiting, counting seconds with his heartbeat. One hit, then another, then silence. Through the slit, a dark shape appeared, something crawling instead of walking. It sniffed the air, its glowing eyes scanning the crack of light under the door. Ethan pressed the trigger. Releasing the EMP, a blue spark flashed. The creature screamed with a metallic shriek. Collapsing outside in a heap of sparks, he didn't wait. He rushed out, slammed the secondary barrier shut, and sealed the hatch again. For a moment he stood there. Breathing hard, Lyra ran to him, hugging his arm tightly. "You've saved us again," she said, voice trembling but full of awe. Ethan knelt down, putting a hand on her shoulder. "I just bought us time," he said softly. "They'll come back." And stronger, the alien woman stirred suddenly. Coughing under her mask, her eyes open, bright silver. Glowing faintly, even in the dim light, Ethan stepped back, surprised. Lyra leaned closer. "Mom, please don't move." "You're hurt." The woman looked at Ethan, studying him with tired but intelligent eyes. "You are human," she whispered weakly, her voice like wind through crystal. "Yes," he replied. "I'm Ethan. I helped you breathe again." She nodded slowly, then said words that made him freeze. "The scavengers. They follow me." Ethan frowned. "You? Why?" She took a shallow breath. "Because I carried the last core." He didn't understand at first. But then it hit him. The Zalari used living energy cores. Powerful biological batteries that could sustain whole colonies if she had one. The scavengers weren't just hunting, they were tracking the strongest power signal left on the planet. "That's why they won't stop," Ethan whispered. Lyra clung to her mother, frightened. "What do we do now?" The woman looked at Ethan with desperate eyes. "You must take her," she said. "Take my daughter to the Ark. Ethan blinked. The Ark. It's gone. Destroyed years ago. No, she said firmly. One survived beneath the northern cliffs. The humans never found it. Ethan shook his head. That's across 50 miles of wasteland. Filled with storms and scavengers, her voice grew weaker. Then you must hurry, because they will come before dawn. He looked at Lyra, the tiny alien girl who trusted him without reason. He looked at the dying mother who believed in a human she had just met. And in that moment, something inside him shifted. Fear turned into resolve. He tightened the straps of his oxygen pack. Then we leave before sunrise, he said. Lyra stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. You'll really take us? Ethan smiled faintly. We started this together. We finish it together. Outside. In the fog, red lights began to move again. The scavengers had found the scent, and deep in the storm, the dark world prepared to swallow them whole. The road through Ash the Night was fading, but the storm had not stopped. Black clouds rolled over the dead city like waves of smoke. Ethan packed his few tools and sealed 2 oxygen tanks into a small carrier. Lyra helped as best she could. Her small hands shaking but determined, her mother sat against the bunker wall. Pale and weak, yet her silver eyes still sharp. You have little time, she whispered, once the sun rises. The scavengers will track the heat trail. Ethan nodded. Then we leave now. He gave the woman his last water pack, and she took a small sip. Her breathing was shallow, the sound of someone who had already accepted her fate. I can slow them, she said quietly. My signal draws them. I'll stay behind. Lyra's eyes widened. No, I'm not leaving you. Her mother touched her face gently. You must, my star. You must live. Ethan turned away, clenching his jaw. He had seen sacrifice before. Soldiers, workers, families torn by war. But it never got easier. No, he said. We all go or none of us. The alien woman looked at him, surprised by his tone. Humans always think they can fight fate, she murmured. Maybe, he said. But sometimes that's what saves us. They stepped into the storm. Wind howling like the voice of a dying world, ash and rain mixed in the air. Burning the skin through thin fabric, Ethan led the way, guiding Lyra with one hand while supporting her mother with the other. The world around them was a graveyard, ships half buried in sand, towers torn open, and bones of metal scattered like fallen stars. Lyra looked at everything with wide eyes, her small body glowing faintly under the gray sky. Was it always like this? She asked. Ethan shook his head. No, once it was full of light. Humans and your kind worked side by side. What happened? She whispered. He sighed. Fear happened. People stopped seeing each other as life and started seeing enemies instead. They reached the edge of the ruins by dawn. The horizon glowed dull red. The sun struggling to pierce the thick air in the distance. Ethan saw movement, not scavengers, but drones, old security machines still patrolling long after their masters were gone. Stay low, he whispered. We move when they turn. Lyra clutched his coat tightly, her eyes darting at every sound. Her mother stumbled, coughing violently. Ethan stopped, knelt beside her, and checked the oxygen line. The flow was weak, the filter clogged with dust. He quickly replaced it. His hands steady, though his heart raced. She looked up at him, whispering, Why are you helping us, human? He smiled faintly. Because your daughter reminds me of someone I failed to save. She stared at him for a moment, then said softly, Then maybe saving her will save you too. They continued north. Climbing over broken highways covered in sand, Ethan's boots left faint tracks behind. Soon erased by the wind, hours passed. And the world grew quieter. No machines, no voices. Only the slow hum of the dying earth. Lyra hummed softly, a Zelari song her mother had taught her. It was sad yet beautiful, a melody that cut through the silence like light through smoke. Ethan felt something stir inside him, hope perhaps. Something small but real. Then suddenly, the ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed across the plain, and Ethan froze from behind the ridge. Shapes appeared tall, metallic, crawling on 6 legs, scavenger hunters, tracking the core signal. Run! He shouted, grabbing Lyra's hand. They sprinted through the ruins, debris crashing around them. The mother stumbled but pushed forward. Every breath a struggle. One of the hunters fired a bolt of plasma, striking the ground inches from Ethan. He shielded Lyra with his body, rolling behind a broken wall. His heart thundered. But his mind was clear. He pulled out his pulse stick, useless at long range, but deadly up close. He looked at Lyra. "When I move, you run for that tunnel?" He pointed to a collapsed subway shaft nearby. She shook her head. "No, you'll die." He smiled. "I'll live. I always do." He charged from cover, shouting to draw their aim. The hunters turned, their red lights focusing on him. He threw the pulse stick, the blast flashing bright blue. One hunter collapsed in sparks. 2 more slowed down, their systems flickering. Ethan grabbed the mother and pushed her toward the tunnel. "Go," he yelled. Lyra screamed, reaching back for him. But he waved her forward. The last hunter leaped. Metal claws slashing the air, Ethan turned and fired his flare gun straight into its sensor. The creature shrieked, spinning wildly before collapsing in smoke. When silence returned, Ethan fell to his knees. Breathing hard, he looked toward the tunnel. Lyra was there, crying but safe. Her mother lay beside her. Whispering something weakly, he crawled toward them, half laughing, half trembling. Lyra threw her arms around him. "You came back?" He smiled faintly. "I told you I always keep my promises." The alien woman looked at him, her voice faint. "The Ark is near," she whispered, "beyond the valley." "Follow the river of glass." Ethan nodded. "We'll make it." But as he looked into her fading eyes, he knew she wouldn't. And yet, in that moment, under the burning red sky, he also knew something else. He would carry her promise, even if it cost him everything. The storm quieted. The hunters burned behind them, ahead. The river of glass shimmered faintly under the rising sun. And together, a human and a child from the stars walked toward the last hope of 2 dying worlds. Asterisk the river of glass. The storm had passed, leaving behind a strange silence. The ground shimmered faintly under the red morning light, turning the desert into a sea of cracked crystal. Each shard reflected the sky like fragments of forgotten dreams. Ethan walked slowly, his arm around Lyra, to keep her steady. The child's small face was pale, her glowing eyes filled with worry behind them. The wind carried dust and the faint smell of burned metal. The scavengers were gone for now, but Ethan knew they would return. Lyra's mother lay wrapped in a thin blanket on a hover sled Ethan had built from scrap. Her breathing was shallow, her skin dulling from bright silver to gray. She whispered weakly, "The river will guide you. Follow it until it hums." Ethan frowned. "Hums." "She means the Ark," Lyra said softly. "It sings when you are close." Ethan didn't know what that meant. But he trusted them. Every hour the air grew thinner, and his oxygen tanks ran lower. He checked the gauge, less than 30% left. He tried not to let Lyra see his fear, but she noticed anyway. "Will we make it?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "We will. You'll see." They followed the glassy plain until the land began to slope downward. A low vibration pulsed beneath their feet, faint but steady. It wasn't from machines. It felt alive. Lyra stopped and looked around, her antenna-like markings glowing brighter. "She's singing," she whispered. "The Ark is calling." Ethan turned his scanner toward the horizon, buried deep beneath the sand. Faint energy readings appeared, geometric, structured, not natural. He felt a rush of hope. "It's real," he murmured. Then his smile faded, because hope also meant danger. If the Ark was broadcasting, others could sense it too. They pressed on. The hum growing stronger with each step. By noon they reached the edge of a wide canyon. At the bottom lay what looked like a lake of glass, glowing faintly from within. And at the far end, a metallic structure, half buried in rock, enormous and ancient. The Ark, its whole, shimmered like silver ice. Engraved with alien symbols and human letters twisted together by time. Lyra gasped. She wasn't lying. "It's really here," Ethan nodded slowly, awe in his voice. "Your people built something incredible." He scanned for an entrance and found a collapsed tunnel leading downward. It looked unstable. But there was no other way. He turned to Lyra. "Stay close, And don't touch the glass walls. They're sharp, she nodded. Holding his hand as they descended, inside, the air was cooler, cleaner, and filled with a faint blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. They passed long corridors lined with pods, hundreds of them. Silent and frozen, Ethan brushed off the dust on one and saw a face inside. Peaceful, sleeping. Lyra gasped, "They're alive?" He shook his head. Cryostasis, waiting for power to return. Her mother stirred weakly on the sled, whispering, "The core. It must return to the Ark." Ethan understood now. The living energy core inside her body was the key. She wasn't just carrying it. She was part of it. He felt a lump in his throat. "If we give it back, will it save them?"
Yes.
She said softly, "But it will take what's left of me."
I write you.
Ira's eyes filled with tears. "No, you promised we'd be together." Her mother smiled faintly, touching her cheek. "My little star, together does not always mean the same place." Ethan turned away, unable to hide the pain in his eyes. He had lost people before, but this was different. This was a choice between one life and many. A deep rumble shook the corridor. Ethan looked up. The scavengers had found them again. Red lights flashing through the glass canyon outside. "They're coming," he said sharply. "We don't have time." He lifted the mother onto his back, guiding Lyra through the corridor until they reached the central chamber. A massive circular room opened before them. Glowing with pale energy, at the center stood a pedestal surrounded by symbols. Ethan placed her gently upon it. Her body seemed to respond, light flowing from her veins into the structure. The entire chamber brightened, humming with warmth. Lyra cried out, "Mom!" But Ethan held her back. The woman's form shimmered, her outline fading into the glow. Her voice echoed softly, "Protect her, human. She carries my light now." Then the light exploded outward, flooding the Ark with power. Pods began to flicker alive, systems rebooted. And air returned to the halls. Ethan shielded his face from the brilliance. When it faded, the pedestal was empty. She was gone. Lyra fell to her knees, silent tears running down her cheeks. Ethan knelt beside her, whispering, "She saved them, Lyra. She saved everyone." Lyra looked up at him, her small voice trembling. "Then I will live so she didn't fade for nothing." He nodded. His chest heavy with pride and sorrow. Behind them, the Ark began to rise. Ancient engines roaring to life after centuries of silence outside. Scavengers scattered as beams of light burst through the glass. And in that moment, under the trembling sky, humanity and the Zelari had hope again. The light within the Ark trembled as its heart awoke. Blue light spread through every corridor like water returning to dry earth. Dust lifted into the air. Falling again as golden mist, Ethan shielded his eyes, watching the sleeping pods flicker one by one. The hum of ancient engines filled the air, low and deep, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. He had seen many machines in his life, but nothing like this. It felt alive. Lyra stood beside him, tears still wet on her cheeks, her small hands glowing faintly with the same blue light that now pulsed through the Ark. "She's inside," Lyra whispered softly. "I can feel her." Ethan turned to her, puzzled. "You mean your mother?" Lyra nodded, touching her chest. "She didn't die. She became the song of the Ark." Before he could speak, a voice filled the chamber, calm, clear and gentle. "My child is right," it said. Echoing from the walls, "I am part of the core now." And the Ark breathed once again. Ethan looked around in awe. "You can speak through it?" The voice smiled through sound for a little while. "Until the system stabilizes." Lyra's eyes filled again. "Mom, please don't leave me alone." "You are not alone," the voice said. "Soft as a lullaby. The human will guide you." "And you will guide him." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. "You trusted me more than I deserved," the voice replied. "Trust is not given by merit. It is born from choice. And you chose compassion when the world chose fear." He bowed his head. Humbled, suddenly the floor shook, and alarms flared red. Outside, the scavengers had regrouped, drawn by the surge of power. Hundreds of them swarmed toward the canyon, their metallic cries echoing through the valley. They won't stop, Ethan muttered. No, the voice said sadly. And the Ark cannot rise while under attack. Ethan looked at Lyra, her small face shining in the glow, and made a decision. Then we'll protect it, he said firmly. He sprinted toward the control deck, guided by flickering arrows on the wall. Lyra followed, her feet echoing softly behind him. When they reached the deck, Ethan's eyes widened. The control systems were half human, half Zellery. He recognized the interface. Old Earth technology, fused with alien biocircuits. He placed his hand on the console, and the screen came alive. Authorization accepted, the Ark said. Human engineer. Ethan Reed. Last surviving operator of Station Delta 9. Lyra looked at him in surprise. You built part of this? He nodded slowly. Long ago, before the war. I helped design the hybrid interface, but I never knew it would end up here. He began activating the defense turrets, sending bursts of plasma through the glass canyon. Outside, scavengers exploded in flashes of red light. But more kept coming. Lyra stood near the viewport. Watching with awe and fear, Ethan's hands moved fast, adjusting power flows, sealing outer doors, rerouting energy to shields hold together. Old friend, he muttered to the Ark, just a little longer. The voice of Lyra's mother returned. Softer now, fading, Ethan. The Ark's engines need final synchronization. But only one of us can enter the core to align it. He looked up. You can't. You're already part of it. Yes, she said. But Lyra can. The Ark will respond to her blood. She carries my light. Lyra's eyes widened. Me. Ethan turned to her, shaking his head. It's too dangerous. The core could burn you alive. The voice whispered gently, if she doesn't. The Ark will fall, and all those sleeping souls will be lost forever. Ethan clenched his fists, torn between logic and heart. Lyra stepped forward, her small voice steady. My mom gave her life for them. I can do this too. He knelt in front of her, holding her shoulders. You're just a child, she smiled through tears. So was she when she saved our village. She told me once that courage isn't about size. Ethan looked into her glowing eyes. And for a moment, he saw not a child, but a spark of the same light her mother carried. He guided her to the central chamber. The core pulsed like a star trapped inside glass. Energy danced around it in arcs of blue lightning. Ethan connected the stabilizer cables. Adjusting the flow until the hum evened out, Lyra stepped onto the platform, her skin shimmering as the energy recognized her presence. The voice whispered, Now, my star, sing. Lyra closed her eyes, her voice rising into the air, the same song she had sung on the road. The lullaby of the Zellery, the Ark responded, its light pulsing in rhythm with her melody. The engines roared, shaking the ground, and the scavengers outside screamed as blinding light flooded the canyon. Ethan watched in awe, shielding his face from the storm of radiance. Then, silence. The Ark floated slowly upward, lifting from the glass canyon like a giant rising from slumber. The scavengers disintegrated in the burst of energy, their metal bodies melting into the ground inside. Ethan ran to Lyra. She had collapsed on the platform. Breathing shallowly but alive, he lifted her gently, whispering, You did it, little one. You did it. A faint voice echoed from the walls. Softer than before? She did more than that, Ethan. She gave us a new dawn, as the Ark rose into the golden sky. The voice faded completely. Only the hum of life remained. Steady and calm, Ethan held Lyra close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. He looked out through the viewport at the dead world below, now glowing with faint blue veins of energy. The planet was healing, and for the first time in years, Ethan smiled, truly smiled, because in saving one child, humanity had saved itself too. Asterisk the dawn beyond the stars, the Ark drifted high above the broken planet. Its engines glowed like twin suns, scattering the last traces of ash into the upper sky. From orbit, the world below no longer looked dead. Faint rivers of blue energy spread like veins of light through its surface. It was breathing again, slowly, painfully, but alive. Ethan stood by the wide observation glass, his reflection surrounded by the glow of the stars. Beside him lay Lyra, wrapped in a soft blanket, sleeping peacefully for the first time since her mother's sacrifice. Her breathing was calm, her small hands still faintly luminous. Pulsing with the rhythm of the Ark's core, Ethan's chest ached as he watched her. He had seen so much loss that hope had become a stranger, but now hope slept beside him, small and fragile, yet stronger than steel. He turned back to the control panel, reading the status feed: atmospheric regeneration stable. Reactor synchronization complete for the first time in decades. The planet's systems were no longer dying. He exhaled slowly, whispering, "You did it. All of you." Then a faint sound interrupted the silence, a soft tone repeating every few seconds. He frowned, checking the comms module, a transmission, ancient and coded in both human and Zelari language. The screen flickered, and a message appeared. Arc non-report status: survivors detected on Colony Vega. Request rendezvous. Ethan's eyes widened, his heart racing. "Another Arc," he murmured. "We're not the only ones left." He looked at Lyra, still sleeping, her small hand glowing brighter, as if her mother's voice was answering across space. He smiled faintly. "Looks like we have company, kid." He spent the next hours restoring navigation control. The Ark's map bloomed before him, hundreds of routes, most dark, but one shining bright toward the Vega sector. It was far, weeks away, even at full power. But it was hope, and that was enough. He initiated the course, and the engines shifted to interstellar drive. The ship vibrated gently as the stars began to stretch. Lyra stirred, opening her glowing eyes. "Where are we going?" Ethan crouched beside her, smiling softly. "To find others like you, others like me." Her small brow furrowed. "Are there more?" He nodded. "Maybe, and if there are, they'll need help." Lyra looked toward the stars, her voice barely a whisper. "Then Mom will be proud." Ethan's throat tightened. "She already is for a while." They just watched the universe slide by. Endless darkness painted with rivers of light. Lyra pressed her face to the glass, laughing softly at the glittering trails outside. "It's beautiful," she said. "But lonely too." Ethan nodded. "That's why we keep moving. To fill the lonely with purpose." Days passed in quiet rhythm. Lyra learned from him how to read human symbols, how to repair circuits, how to tell when a machine was happy or sad. And Ethan learned from her how to listen to silence, how to hear the pulse of life in cold metal. They became something like father and daughter, not by blood, but by choice, every night before rest. Lyra would place her hand on the console and hum softly. The Ark would respond with a faint harmonic echo, as if her mother still listened. Ethan never told her how much that sound comforted him, but he smiled every time he heard it. Then, one cycle. The stars outside shifted again, the sensors pinged an alert movement ahead. Large energy readings. Ethan leaned forward, adjusting the scope. At first he thought it was debris, but then he saw the shape. A massive station drifting in orbit around a dark moon. Its surface covered in strange organic growths, pulsing red. Not human, not Zelari, something else. Lyra sensed it too. She grabbed his sleeve. "It feels wrong," he nodded. "Yeah, it's alive." And angry, the Ark slowed automatically, scanning the structure. Data streamed across the panel, unknown biosignal. Energy consistent with scavenger evolution. Ethan's eyes widened. They survived. And they've changed. The scavengers weren't gone. They had evolved beyond their machines, turning into living warships, feeding on energy itself. The Ark trembled slightly, as if it recognized the threat. Lyra looked frightened. "Will they come after us?" Ethan tightened his grip on the console. "Only if we let them." He activated stealth mode, dimming the Ark's signature, but as they drifted past, one of the red eyes on the dark station turned toward them. A deep growl echoed through the void. "Like thunder and vacuum?" Lyra gasped. "They saw us," Ethan whispered. "Hold on." He diverted power to the engines. The Ark roared forward, streaking through the stars behind them. The red station awakened fully, unleashing waves of energy like a hunting beast. The chase had begun, light tearing across the darkness. Ethan gritted his teeth, guiding the ship through asteroid fields. Sparks flew across the deck. Systems screaming, alarms flashing, Lyra held onto the seat. Crying out as the ship lurched, "Ethan, I'm here," he shouted. "Don't be afraid." He rerouted all energy to shields. Pushing the Ark beyond its limits, blue light flared brighter. The voice of the core echoing faintly again. "Protect her," it whispered. Fading into static, Ethan's heart pounded. "I will," he said aloud. The Ark broke through the debris field and vanished into the silent expanse. Behind them, the red monster faded into the black, its hunger unsatisfied. Inside, smoke cleared, systems stabilized. Ethan slumped back, laughing weakly. "We made it." Lyra crawled into his arms. Trembling, but smiling. "You always do," he looked at her. "Brushing ash from her hair, and so will you, outside?" The stars brightened again. The path to Vega, still far but clear. And in the heart of the ship, the hum of the Ark grew steadier, stronger, as if the universe itself whispered, "Humanity still fights. Humanity still loves. Humanity still endures." Asterisk, the last light of humanity, the Ark glided through the void, its engines whispering like distant thunder. Weeks had passed since the chase through the dark zone, yet the memory of those red lights still haunted Ethan's dreams. He had seen many horrors, but nothing compared to the hunger of those living machines. Still, he and Lyra survived, and every sunrise from the ship's viewport reminded him why he kept fighting. Lyra sat near the control deck, sketching small stars on a scrap of metal with a welding pen. Her humming filled the ship, soft and hopeful, the same melody her mother once sang. Ethan listened quietly while adjusting the navigation stabilizers, his eyes tired but peaceful. They had become each other's strength, a soldier of a dead world and a child of the stars. The Ark had become their home, a bridge between two species once divided by fear. Then, one cycle later, the sensors pinged a faint beacon ahead, repeating a coded human distress call. Ethan leaned forward, scanning the data. "It's Vega," he whispered. "We found them." Lyra's eyes lit up. "There are others like you." He smiled faintly. "Maybe not like me, but close enough." The Ark adjusted its course. And soon, a bright blue planet appeared, surrounded by massive orbital rings. Half the rings glowed with power. Half were dead and broken. Signs of battle marked their surfaces, burned scars stretching for miles as they entered orbit. A transmission came through, static at first. Then a voice, "Unidentified vessel, this is Vega Command. State your origin." Ethan pressed the com. "This is Arc-9 human Zalari hybrid craft. Survivors aboard." There was a long pause, then disbelief. "Arc-9. That ship was lost during the Exodus." Ethan chuckled softly. "Guess we missed the memo. Permission was granted." And the Ark descended through glowing clouds toward the main colony. The surface was breathtaking, cities built from both human steel and Zalari crystal. Two species had learned to live together again, rebuilding from ashes. Children with glowing eyes played in the streets beside human workers. Lyra pressed her face against the window, eyes wide in wonder. "It's so alive," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, it's what your mother wanted to see," when they landed. A small group of soldiers and scientists approached the ramp. Their faces were a mix of curiosity and shock. Ethan carried Lyra down the steps, the light of the Ark shining behind them like dawn. A woman in a commander's uniform stepped forward, saluting, "Welcome home." "Whoever you are," she said. Ethan grinned tiredly. "Name's Ethan Reed, engineer." "Relic of the old world," her eyes widened. "You were part of Project Ark?" "You helped design it," he nodded. "Yeah, and now I've brought one back." They took Lyra to the medical wing, where doctors scanned her vitals in awe. Her body emitted stable energy readings, half biological, half core resonance. One doctor whispered, "She's the living bridge, human and Zalari energy combined." Ethan watched silently, pride and sorrow mixing inside him. The commander approached him later, eyes serious. "We thought the Ark projects were lost forever," she said. "But if the core is active, we can restart the planetary grid." He nodded slowly. "Then use it wisely this time. not for war. She smiled faintly. Maybe we finally learned that lesson. Days turned into weeks. And Vega began to shine brighter. The Ark's energy reconnected their dormant systems. Bringing light to cities long shrouded in darkness, Lyra became a symbol, a reminder of unity. A child of both worlds, everywhere she went. People greeted her with warmth and gratitude, but Ethan stayed mostly silent, working behind the scenes, repairing old circuits, teaching engineers the lost human-Zalari interface. He wasn't looking for glory, only purpose. Sometimes, late at night, he would stand on the colony's balcony, staring at the stars. He would hear faint whispers in the hum of the wind. Her voice, "Thank you, Ethan." Then, one evening, the stars above flickered, not naturally. But in pattern, Ethan frowned, calling up the scanners. A coded message appeared again, repeating across multiple systems. But this time it wasn't human, nor Zalari. It was something else, something vast and ancient. Lyra walked up beside him, sensing his unease. "They're calling too," she said softly. He looked at her, confused. "Who?" Her eyes glowed brighter, the ones who built the first songs. "Before humans or Zalari?" For a long time, Ethan said nothing. Then he smiled faintly. "So, it never ends, does it?" Lyra shook her head, smiling back. "No, it just begins again." He rested a hand on her shoulder, looking out at the rising twin moons of Vega. "Then I guess we'll answer that call together," he said. Above them, the Ark shimmered in orbit, its hull gleaming like a new sunrise. The stars beyond pulsed with distant music, ancient, mysterious, and full of promise. And somewhere deep in the heart of the ship, the echo of a mother's voice lingered. Protect her and through her. Protect them all. The Ark's lights flared one last time. A symbol of what humanity had always been. Broken, but unyielding. Wounded but kind. Lost but never without hope. And as the ship turned its bow toward the unknown, carrying a man and a child who were more than survivors, the stars themselves seemed to whisper the truth of every HFY legend ever told. Humanity still fights, humanity still saves, and humanity still loves.